Good day, everyone. I have the pleasure to welcome today Bea Kornakia. Thank you, Bea, for coming to our today's part of Be in Innovations, Buďte v obraze v inovacích. Bea is a top global marketing executive. She's the Executive Vice President of MasterCard, responsible for marketing and communications, I would say in the whole world outside of the US and Canada. And we will get to that because my first question would be, did you always want to be a global marketing top executive in a global company like MasterCard?
First of all, thank you for having me. It's really my pleasure and my honor. Yes, the answer is yes. And I really don't know why, because I was born in a family where both my dad and my mom were entrepreneurial. But my dream has been always be the CMO of a global company. Don't ask me why. So that has been my dream. And so, yeah, I'm very lucky to be able to continue to believe in my dream and to go through my journey.
And indeed, Bea, in this sense, you have an amazing story because you have been with MasterCard and in the marketing area, growing up to really the top level over 3 decades, which is difficult to say.
Thank you.
By your appearance. But indeed, how would you describe those 3 decades? I know it's difficult in brief, from the perspective of the changes you have experienced, because there have been tremendous changes like in any other industry.
Yeah, it's quite unbelievable to believe. I always refer to MasterCard, my long-lasting relationship. So, and I started, the funny story is that when I was entering in the business world, I did the application of 2 jobs. One was to be a cabin crew of Alitalia, which used to be the Italian airline at that time, which afterward went bankrupt. And the second was to be the business assistant of the country manager of MasterCard, which at that time, the name was Eurocard, because then we have been changing. And I went through the selection and I was lucky enough to be selected for both jobs. And all my friends were telling me, Bea, come on, there is no, I mean, yes, you have to go through the cabin crew. It's a much more exciting job. But then as I told you, my dream was to be the CMO of a global company. So at that moment, I decided that, no, I'm going to be the business assistant of the country manager of a company that has a global reach. And that was the starting moment for me to decide. And then I had the pleasure to change my job quite a lot, to do different things. If I look back about my career, I think that few important moments. The first one was when I was a super junior person and I volunteered myself to be part of the team that created Priceless. At that time, of course, I didn't know anything. I was a very junior marketeer. And MasterCard was in a very pivoting moment in which we wanted to enter, at that time, in the advertising world. And we wanted to create a new campaign, a new way to communicate. And they were trying to collect people across the globe because the idea was to develop a global campaign. And even without thinking too much, I volunteered myself. And of course, I was a very junior person. I mean, my contribution wasn't incredible, but at that moment, I was there. And now, almost 30 years later, Priceless is one of the most awarded campaigns in the world. So that, for me, was an incredible moment and also a lesson learned. Be curious and try always to raise your hand and try to do new experiences.
I'm happy to hear that. A real-life example of what I sometimes also, when I mentor younger women, basically try to stress that one. You never know where this takes you, but volunteering and just taking the opportunities which arise, even if you don't think about the full consequence, may be the good strategy for your future
At that time,
life.
I didn't know what we were doing, but that was incredible, indeed.
with the legendary Priceless, which everyone knows. Every kid grows up with that slogan
Yes.
in the different languages in mind. What were the other marketing concepts which you then, as a more senior person, were able to bring? Because, okay, this may not be the most technological innovation, but just like in any area, without such reinventing yourself, reinventing the company's directions, we would not be relevant for the future. So are there any other moments outside of the Priceless, and obviously they are, which you would like to mention?
Yeah, for sure. So moving forward in my career, so I spent my first part of my career in marketing, but then I said to myself, if you really want to be relevant and if you really want to leave a mark, you need to know your business better than anybody else. So I decided to do a lateral move, which sometimes people are not really willing to do, because of course a lateral move means not a step up, means a lot of putting yourself out of your comfort zone. So I decided to move from marketing to business, always inside MasterCard, because I really wanted to know our business better than anybody else. It has been tough. It has been complex, because I was coming from marketing, which I knew that was my world, that was my comfort zone.
Plus, you had this vision to become the global executive.
Exactly, and everybody would say, "But why are you doing that?" But this for me was another incredible decision, and I'm so grateful that I did, because I spent 4 years doing business. I was an account lead of a global key account, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences, because I learned so much about our business, which I think is instrumental if you want to be a great marketeer. A marketeer needs to know the business and, if possible, anticipate the consumer need. And that was for me another great lesson learned. And I always say to people, never shortcut. Yes, this was 5 more years. Most probably I would have reached a C-level position in marketing maybe sooner if I wouldn't have done that step. But that was incredibly important for my career and incredibly important for my knowledge to be a better marketeer. So that is something that I always say to people, never shortcut, try to be focused, do your best, things will pay back.
This is perfect. I was coming in here to talk about innovations, but this could be also a nice leadership book and overview. Indeed, a good inspiration on again, a perfect real-life example, how the lateral moves, which are not so popular, actually can even enhance your career in many other ways.
100%. And actually, you said innovation. For me, innovation is not just a technical advancement. Innovation is thinking differently and possibly thinking something before that the rest of the world is thinking. That's what is innovation. And I really feel that in MasterCard, with the entire Priceless concept and then moving forward the multisensory approach, that's what innovation means for us in marketing.
And thank you for mentioning the multisensory, because all the haptic, sonic, and even scent. Can you maybe elaborate on that one? Because it may not be visible in all the countries or understandable. So would you please tell us what's that about?
So we spoke before about Priceless. And so Priceless was launched almost 30 years ago as an advertising campaign. But it was quite innovative, because, as I told you at that time, our scope was to enter in the advertising space. We were not the only payment brand. We had at that time 2 very big brands. And but when we entered, we said something which was quite bold. There is something that money can buy. For everything else, there is MasterCard, which our competitor were says exactly the opposite. They were putting the attention to the payment somehow. But we wanted to move the attention from the payment to the beauty that you would get out of what you have purchased. So we tried 30 years ago to say that experience are more relevant than things, which was quite an innovation at that time. But then what is important in marketing and in life, I think, is trying to be ahead of the game. So then we wanted to continue to stay true to our value, but at the same time to listen to our consumers. And the consumers has evolved, like life is evolving. And then the consumers was getting much more educated, and advertising wasn't anymore the right things to do. Our CMO currently say advertising is dead. So how can we start to have an interaction with our consumer? How can we start to be in connection to our consumer? And that's where the multisensory approach started to became a reality. We wanted to be with our consumer in their mind and in their heart. So the 5 senses are the most relevant things in your life. And that's why we started with the site. MasterCard is one of the few brands that is a symbolic brand. We have removed the name MasterCard.
That is right.
We only have the 2 interlocking circles, and today more than 76% of the population is recognizing our brand from our colors. So it's quite relevant. Then the sound. We are going through a very interesting world where payment will be made by your voice. And so we thought that it was important to have some reference, a sound that could tell you that your transaction when going through and when all good. So we are in the world of Alexa, we are in the world, so that was relevant. And while we were developing the sound, which is also an acceptance brand in another world, we said, okay, let's create a full melody, and that's how the sound came to play. The third is the taste. The passion of our consumers are so relevant. Culinary is an important passion, and we wanted to be close to our consumer, and that's why we have developed our culinary strategy. And then the touch. The touch for us, it's extremely important because we are an inclusive brand, and we develop our touch card. There are our friends that they have some sight issue that for them it's very complex to recognize the different card that they have on their portfolio. And with a little notch, just with the touch, they can now recognize which kind of card that they have. So, in other words, we really wanted to own all the 5 senses of our consumer, just to be closer to them and to be relevant to them.
That's indeed amazing. You spoke about the logo as well. Many companies change their logos over time. I like to actually see these comparisons, how they are actually getting also very much colorless. Is there in any near future to be expected that your colors disappear, or rather not, based on what you said?
Absolutely not. So our 2 colors, the red and the orange, are for us, the red is passion, and that's what we want to express to our consumer, and the orange is optimism. And that's also, to talk about another sense, we have created our essence, our smell. So no, our logo will continue to be the optimism that we have in life and the passion that we have for our consumers and for their life.
I have to ask the local colleagues to let me smell the smell.
Yes,
because I have not experienced that one yet.
I will definitely bring you our perfume.
That's surely an interesting concept, and indeed an innovation as well.
Exactly.
For a brand like that. We have discussed now the innovations and a bit on your career path, but you are also very much supportive not only to the sustainability in terms of the environment, also the diversity topics. Basically, doing things with a purpose.
Yes.
Which of those, I don't want to say, do you like more or most, but what would be, again, the topics which you would mention where you try to do things differently, both you as a person, but also MasterCard as a company?
Yeah. I always say that one of the main reasons why I've been working for this company for such a long time, it's because my values are the same values that MasterCard has. So I do recognize my values in MasterCard. So sustainability and inclusion is definitely an important topic. Let me start with sustainability. It's an incredibly important topic for ourselves, but for the world. And we truly believe that global company like MasterCard, they have to do something, and they have to lead the way. So for this reason, we have a very important protocol that it's at 360 degrees, not only in what we do for the external world, but also how we work internally. So there is a lot of process, a lot of commitment that we have been taken. Inclusion for us is another important element. We made a pledge to include a lot of people into the financial system. If we think carefully, financially including people means giving dignity to people. Because as always says, we are in Europe, we are very lucky, but there are people across the globe that they can't open an account, they can't be financially included, and they don't have history. So that's for us, financial inclusion is extremely important. And then the entire diversity topic, it's important. But what we want to give people the freedom to decide what they want. So our main commitment is to give equal possibilities to people. Then it's up to people to decide what they want to do. And we feel that this shouldn't be just a theme, but should be embedded in whatever we do. And that's why we always say that we are doing well by doing good.
I feel that your brand is one of those, not only which is timeless, but also relevant to all generations. So talking diversity, my obvious question will be asking you about Gen Z. Is this somehow changing your perception? Because again, from my perspective, and I'm far from Gen Z, except for the kids I have at home and little alphas actually rather. Of course, I see the difference both privately when being a consumer and user of your products, as well as professionally. Is this somehow truly influencing? How do you stay relevant? How do you cater for the needs of all these generations, which we now all have to actually appeal to?
Yeah, 100%. So for us, as you correctly said, it's extremely important to be relevant for all the consumers that we have in front of us. And being relevant, so Gen Z is definitely a target, but it's not the only target. But of course, this means that we need to be very focused on the needs of the different kind of consumers. And MasterCard brand positioning is connecting everyone to their priceless possibilities. So in the case of the Gen Z, that's what we are trying to gathering, and we are trying to understand which are their passions, they priceless possibilities. So they are extremely important in the way we dialogue with them. They are extremely important in the way we create all the passions and all the assets. But I have to say that as an inclusive brand, what our aim is really to talk to every single consumers in order to express their priceless possibilities. For the Gen Z, for example, we are working a lot in the e-gaming. We know that this is a very important topic, and MasterCard always tries to be relevant. MasterCard has the pleasure to work with League of Legends and with Valorant, which are the two biggest brands in the e-gaming. So yes, they are relevant, but allowed me to say that they are relevant in the same way every single target, it's relevant and it's close to our heart.
So indeed, so you're staying balanced, basically,
yes.
and I believe really this is the challenge also for the banks, because you cannot, okay, there are some players who go full digital, but for the more traditional banks who digitalize themselves, but have to be relevant for the other segments, it's quite a difficult task,
yeah.
especially the marketing part of it, because, okay, you can have different digital channels or different traditional channels, but it's quite difficult to run different marketing concepts and brand communications for the one brand which you try to build.
Yeah, so. but you know that these are the challenges that thanks God we have, because they are making our life more exciting. I always say to my team, a challenge is a new opportunity, and I think marketeers they have a very important job to play. I feel that we are. I always say to people that tend to say that marketing it's a beauty, I say that marketing is a science, because we are starting with data. We are starting to understand who we have in front of us, and possibly, as I said before, how we anticipate the need. But then, since we are smarter than others, we can put a lot of beauty on top of a science. So yes, you're right. It's a challenge to connect all the different consumers, but that is the beauty of being a marketeer. Be able to connect with every single consumers in a different way.
Right. I'm just thinking, talking marketing, there are also less pleasant moments, like when you have some crisis, when you do have some, now with this cyber criminals, the cybersecurity, I know is a huge topic for your company as well, because just like the banks, your commodity is the trust you operate on. Have you had in your career some really difficult moments from that perspective, and how did you handle them?
Plenty. I mean, as you said, in 3 decades and being in charge of marketing and communication, we had a lot of crises. I always say that whenever there is a crisis, especially the comms people, they don't have to listen whatever the others want to do. We just need to remain focused and trying to solve a problem at a time. And let's not be in love with the concept of communicate. There are moments in which it's better to be silent, but solving a problem. So yes, for me, a crisis is going to be solved. Be extremely prepared. So what you can do before the crisis is happening, and that is the job that we need to do every single day. When the crisis is hitting you, you just need to be focused, concentrate, not be in love necessary to communicate, but be in love to solve the problem that the crisis has caused, and then go straight and don't try to please anyone. If you just need to please one, is the consumers or the society that got the problem. So it's a tough moment, because in that moment you may need to say no to a lot of people.
Indeed. So I just needed to ask that, because next to all the happy times and happy days and all the positive topics which are connected, of course, there is this aspect to our jobs, which is hopefully not too frequent, hopefully not too visible, but let's put this on the table as well. And that's very much linked to the good marketing you do, because if you don't manage those situations, the whole 100%. Reputation can go down the drain.
And also you need to be honest. I mean, of course, we had situations, fortunately enough, not a lot, in which, I don't know, our system was down for a few moments, but then you need to be honest. Because I think consumers need to be treated with the same respect that they are giving you choosing your product and your brand.
Because your service, which is worldwide, indeed, comes with huge responsibility as well.
Yes, 100%.
Absolutely. Now to the happier talks again. And staying with the innovations and AI, how about the Agent Pay? This is a new service. I don't doubt that this will be one of the topics you may talk about for long.
Yes.
But how do we imagine that? Because I get questions myself sometimes at conferences. You just give your card to someone and they do the shopping for you, and it's AI and you have no control. Is it like that, or what's Agent Pay about?
So we are very, as we were speaking, innovation is part of our DNA. And actually, I really feel that innovation has to be the part of the DNA of any global company, because it's our responsibility. But then, as always says, there are some rules. And in Mastercard, innovation is always having an important component of trust. Trust is the most important element, because consumers are trusting us to give their data to us. Consumers are trusting us that their money will go through for a payment. So this is a very important situation. So yes, we are going into this world, and the Agent Pay is the possibility to have AI that can give you some advice. I don't know, let's say that you want to organize a party for your daughter, and you need to start to buy all the different components for the party, including how you want to be dressed. And the agent will give you some advice, will give you some tip, will give you also decide how you want to be dressed based on what he knows or she knows about yourself, and then can finalize in the transaction, so can really make in the purchase. But everything is set by you. So you can, for example, decide that the agent can buy only in some particular merchant category code, that can buy only for some amount. So there are all the infrastructure and all the security in place. But the way we normally develop innovation is always to make your life easier and maximize whatever you have to do. But the main control stays on you, because you can decide, as I said, the spending limit, even the geography that you want the agent to work, the different merchant categories. So you will be always responsible and in control of our data. What we are simplifying is the final action. So I think this is an incredible revolution. So we are shifting from just giving you information or advising into completing the overall transaction.
You know, I'm pretty good at finalizing the impossible tasks of our daughters, especially, this is really funny, you mentioned a party, because this was exactly the story in April, and I managed within 1 week. Originally, she's old enough, did not want a theme, and then 3 days before the thing, she comes with a theme. And
of course,
I had to put everything together. So let's see if next time Agent Pay is able to match my skills in terms of doing the impossible possible. But indeed, that's a really nice, again, real-life example of how that could work. And I'm myself a tech optimist, so I'm really looking forward to try out these services. And at the same, I must say, I'm also quite tolerant, let's say, to some initial hiccups. So I can imagine it may not be perfect in the beginning, but you know, just seeing that these things are possible, even to 50%, is amazing with the vision for the future, what this will do in a couple of years.
But you know, you are totally right. It may not be perfect at the beginning, but what do you feel for what you say for perfect? It may not be perfect, the advice that the agent is giving to you. But what I can tell you is going to be perfect from sec 1, from a transaction perspective, from a security perspective, from a data protection perspective. That is already perfect. But of course, the agent may not know that you like a red lipstick, for example. That is something that you may need to teach to the agent. But all the rest, what is the core of what we do, is going to be 100% perfect.
Great. Great, that's good to hear because especially with the changing preferences,
Correct.
especially of the kids,
Correct.
it's not the agent, it's them who are not detectable based on the traditional data. But in this sense, I'm really looking forward to try out more and more these services, and it's good to hear that also in the payment area, with the level of security, which
100%.
is deep in our hearts, also in the bank, this can be already now real life, basically, tried out. We're nearing the end of our discussion today. If I ask you still a bit on the Czech Republic, I know you are globally responsible and we are quite a small country here. At the same time, I still have to ask a question. Is there anything specific about Czech Republic and MasterCard's presence here, or the behavior of the consumers, or anything else you would mention in comparison to the other areas you are responsible for?
So, first of all, I really feel that the scale of a country it's not relevant to innovation. I think you are an incredible innovative country with a great mindset, outstanding marketeers. Of course, they are close to my heart. And for us, yes, we are a global company, but what we feel is extremely important is to be global with all the infrastructure, the thinking, the scale, but be local relevant. So, and that's why we have an office based here. That's why we have a great team which is based here in order to curate and in order to work with all the local partners that we have. MasterCard does believe in partnership. So I don't feel that you have something to learn in particular, because you are doing incredibly well. The way you innovate, the way you do things differently, but also the way you think out of the box is quite outstanding. As always, it's beautiful to share experience. It's beautiful to learn from the others. But I'm very excited from the vibe, from the mood, from the feeling that I see here. I came back to Prague after 20 years, which is quite a lot, and I found a city which is incredibly beautiful. Your architecture is outstanding. Yesterday night I was coming from the airport to my hotel and I crossed the river. It's a picture, it's beautiful. So you need to be proud about your country, but you need to be proud about your people that are extremely innovative, resilient, which is something very important. So you have nothing to learn, but I think it's important to stay relevant and to continue to see what is happening across you.
And that comes from someone who was born, raised, and resident to Rome. So yes. Thank you for the compliments on our capital. And yeah, actually, myself love living here for the people and the beautiful cities, obviously. Now, two more personal questions. Again, your private perspective, because I'm curious if there is any innovation or innovator, past or current, which is personally perceived by you as your main innovation in sense of helper, private helper for your daily life, or any other situation you may think of?
You know, it's a very difficult question to answer, but I will tell you one person, which is quite weird for a marketeer. For me, one of the biggest innovators has been Albert Einstein, because whatever he has been doing has been very important in the maths environment, but more than that, has been creating a new way of thinking. You know, I'm a strong believer that the best innovation are the one related to a different way of thinking. Because if you think out of the box, if you challenge your thinking, then you will create a concrete innovation. But everything starts in your mind. And for me, Albert Einstein has been one of the best innovators, the one that has been changing the way we have been thinking. And even though he was with us in the past, his way of thinking, his impact is still relevant today, and I'm 100% that it will be relevant tomorrow. at the end of the day, whatever, for me, impact is the right word. And whatever Einstein said, discovered, and did, still has an impact in our everyday life.
That's a really amazing, well, it's a very famous person. I would not call it a tip to investigate more about, but indeed for many people, he may not be the obvious choice because he's somewhere in the past with his formula, but there is really a lot of interesting stuff about him. And you did not choose the Italian obvious figures. So that's really interesting to hear where you look up to for your inspiration. Very last question, and that's when you look back and at your career, or maybe even staying in the current times, what would you advise little Bea, looking back, to do differently if you wanted to make a career in marketing or in a big corporation?
So I grew up in a family that gave me a lot of love. I was the only child, but I felt the pressure. Because my dad and my mom were very successful entrepreneurial. I was the only child, and they always wanted me to be the best. But to be the best, not necessarily on the outcome, but to be the best in the way I was respecting people, I was respecting myself, and I had a lot of pressure. So to my little Bea, I would hug her, and I would just say, it's okay, and you are okay. And I think for me, this is an important message because especially today, a lot of people that I have the pleasure and the honor to mentor, especially little girls and women, they don't feel enough. They feel that they have to be better. They feel that they have to be a better version of themselves. And I always say to them now, you need to be you, and you need to love yourself. And it's okay. Making mistake is fine. When I was young, I wasn't accepting any mistake. But now I realize that failure are extremely important in your life. And only through failure, you can achieve an incredible success. So I would just hug her and say, it's fine, and you will be fine.
Thank you very much for those beautiful words. So in the end, this was not just on the innovations, but also a lot of self-awareness and leadership. And I would like to thank my today's guest, Bea Cornacchia, who is the Global Chief Marketing Communication Executive, Vice President in MasterCard for Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Thank you very much for being with us today, Bea.
It has been really my honor and pleasure. Thanks to you.
Thank you.